Well, joining me now is Sir Alan Beith, who's been chairing this committee looking into how the islands, the offshore islands, are dealing with the UK through the Ministry of Justice. And Sir Alan, it's been a couple of years now since you were looking into this, and now you're coming back again to revisit it. Why?
Nothing in particular has triggered this. It's that when we did this work 3 years ago, it led to significant changes and we think improvements in the way the Crown Dependencies relate to the United Kingdom and the way the Ministry of Justice handle these matters. But we wanted to be sure that our recommendations had worked, and we wanted to look whether any experience since then might lead us to think they should be further developed or should have been done differently. But our initial impression is that generally they've been a real improvement, particularly in encouraging government departments to deal directly rather than working through the Ministry of Justice, encouraging them to take account of island concerns when they're developing policies, but also leaving the island governments and the Isle of Man and the Channel Islands to prepare their legislation without feeling they're, as it were, having their homework marked by officials in London who've got plenty else to do, and these are parliaments which can do their own job properly.
You see, this will come as a breath of fresh air to a lot of people on the Isle of Man who feel they've been let down badly over the last few years by the UK government. I'm going to obviously talk about reciprocal health agreements and the VAT changes of agreements there. It seemed it was just, the big boy just taking the sweets without asking.
Well, what happened over the health agreement really should not have happened, and it was one of the things we looked at in the course of our work, and partly as a consequence of our work, a fresh and better decision was taken in the end. But it was a very good example of a decision being taken affecting the islands very drastically without any proper consultation at all, and that simply shouldn't happen. Now, there will be issues where there will be disagreement, and things like the low-value VAT issue are divisive because there are different interests at stake, and there will be cases where UK governments take decisions which the islands don't like, and there will sometimes be cases the other way around. But what we want to make sure is that the proper process for resolving things like that, and they're not done just carelessly without proper discussion.
Lord McNally, of course, has been over here numerous times as to the Channel Islands. You think he's doing a good job?
Well, indeed, at the beginning of this government, when the new government took over, Lord McNally, who's a Liberal Democrat colleague of mine, became minister, there was some talk that they might move the jurisdiction to a different government department in London, which rather worried us because we thought that the Justice Department was the right department to do it, having a constitutional and legal basis. And Lord McNally accepted our view and agreed to take on the responsibility himself. And since he's done that, he's taken a close interest in the Isle of Man and in the Channel Islands, and he accepted probably about 5/6 of the recommendations that we made. And one of the things we want to do is to work out how well it's worked in practice. There are a few things the government didn't accept. For example, we had quite strong views about the way the UK government represents the Isle of Man in international negotiations, and we still don't feel that's satisfactory. You may remember during the Icelandic banking crisis, it was a problem because the UK government quite legitimately had its own interests. The Isle of Man government had different interests, and indeed some British taxpayers, or British account holders, I should say, had an interest in the Isle of Man government's position. But the UK government had to represent both, and there wasn't a proper mechanism for ensuring that the Isle of Man's interests were to the fore when they needed to be.
So, when the Isle of Man government goes down to London to talk to people, we don't talk minister to minister, do we? Do you see that is a problem still? That if our chief minister goes down to London, he'll just talk to some civil servant.
I think that's improving. I think there's more discussion with ministers, and if that has been a problem, that will be an interesting thing we'll find out in the course of the inquiry we're making now. Because when necessary, there should be straight talking between ministers in the Isle of Man and ministers in the UK, if it's an issue at that sort of level. But a lot of the discussion, of course, is between Isle of Man officials and UK government officials. And it used to go a very tortuous route where the Ministry of Justice was a sort of funnel through which everything had to pass. Well, frankly, it hasn't got the time of officials sufficient to do that. And it's really far better that the Isle of Man departments can deal more directly with UK government departments. And similarly, when it comes to looking at legislation, the details of legislation, we don't want Isle of Man legislation or Guernsey or Jersey legislation held up by a slow process in the UK for securing the royal assent. And again, I think our recommendations have helped with that.
And your views on how the Isle of Man has led this sort of getting away from the tax haven status, the first one to offer a full transparency with the UK, their version of FATCA, for instance, and the Isle of Man led that, and Jersey, Guernsey have really been following the Isle of Man's lead. How do you view that?
I'm impressed by the way the Isle of Man was right out in front on that issue. This is one of what we call the good neighbour issues, where there are various reasons why the UK government has a proper interest in what the Isle of Man government does. Some of them are because the UK government represents the Isle of Man internationally and has to ensure that the Isle of Man complies with international agreements to which we're all party. But the other things are good neighbour issues, where the UK system can't work properly if the Isle of Man system doesn't work in a way which can fit with it. And tax transparency is a crucial matter of good governance between neighbours and good neighbourly relations. I think the Isle of Man has an exemplary record on this issue, and that it's good for the standing of the Isle of Man in the world.